Yes, please come.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, sir. May I have a seat?
Yeah, please.
Thank you, sir.
You are Shaswath.
Yes, sir.
Okay, please introduce. Tell about yourself.
Sir, my name is Shaswath Agarwal. I originally hail from Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh. I have done my bachelor's in political science from Delhi University. Post that, sir, I worked for a year as a LAM fellow at PRS Legislative Research. After that, sir, I have pursued my master's in development and labor studies from Jawaharlal Nehru University. And post that, sir, I have been preparing for the civil services. And this is my third attempt. And I have fulfilled Indian Foreign Service as my first preference.
You finished your MA which year?
Sir, in 2023 itself. Yes, sir.
Very good. Okay, so can you tell 3 SDGs in which India has excelled? You worked on SDGs?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So the first SDG is the SDG goal number 1 itself, that is no poverty. India has itself reduced poverty in last 20 years, where the UN report points out that India has pulled out more than 25 crore people in last 20
second?
years. So second is the goal 4, that is quality education. India has made tremendous strides in promoting education in terms of improving its literacy rate as well as promoting the infant participation in these schools.
Okay.
And so the third is the SDG goal number 6, that is drinking water and sanitation. Through schemes like the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and the Jal Jeevan initiative, the government has promoted the penetration of drinking water as well as sanitation in the rural areas. Sir.
And 3 goals which you doubt will be achieved during your lifetime also.
Sir, it is difficult to predict something that may happen in the entire lifetime, but I can talk about those goals that would be difficult.
Say next 20 years.
So the first would be, in my perspective, the goal 5 that talks about the gender equality. Because we see that India's female labor force participation rate is still not commensurate. So the second would be, in my understanding, the goal of the life on Earth. We see that there has been a decline in the overall population of some of the wildlife species, especially those which are endangered. So the third and one of the most crucial sustainable goals is the partnership among all goals, that is goal number 17, where we see that these goals are not just important in independence, but these are also interrelated. So we need to achieve the interdependence of these goals, bring a consonance in all of them so as to achieve them successfully. This could also be a challenge.
Your father has what business?
So he has a luggage retail shop in Varanasi.
Okay. So does it attract GST?
Yes, sir.
How much?
So he pays GST under the GST compensation cess. The GST compensation.
Luggage, on luggage, what is the GST?
So it is 18%.
18%.
Yes.
Okay, so what is the GST collection of India?
Sir, I don't have the exact. I don't
Monthly.
recall the. Sir, in a quarter, in the last quarter, it was 1.65 lakh crores.
Okay. In the quarter?
Sir, I'll read the figures again.
You correct yourself, yes.
Quarter or in the month?
Sir, I'll have to read that again.
1.89 lakhs.
Yeah. In the month?
Month, yes.
Monthly.
Yes.
Not quarterly. Okay.
I'll
And
read that.
so what tax is GST? It's direct or indirect?
Sir, it is an indirect tax.
So how much is the direct tax collection?
Sir, I don't have the exact figures. I'll
Some-
read more about that.
Some rough idea. Is it more than indirect or it's less?
Sir, at the annual level, the indirect taxes are at the national level, the indirect taxes are higher than the direct taxes.
Okay. Now, after the GST was introduced, your father is happier or is upset about it?
So the initial 2 years, there was a bit of resistance from the local businesses because the entire process had also turned to digital, and there was lack of clarity in terms of the overall payments that were being made. So there were some hiccups in the initial 2 years, but now as the GST has been more streamlined, the businessmen are facing more clarity in terms of.
So what is it that makes him happier?
So the first is that there is more clarity with respect to the taxes. Initially, there was what we called as the web of obligations. There were multiplicity of taxes which he had to pay.
Okay.
That was a bit of a problem. Secondly, sir, there is through the e-billing mechanism, the e-way bills, the transport of goods has become more streamlined. This has also been more of a comfort for the businesses.
Yes, but if you send something through a transport
Yes, sir.
and somebody does transshipment, then there can be problem, isn't it?
So there is indeed
Like
problems
there
in
are people who
transshipment.
consolidate the luggage and then the goods and then send.
Yes, sir.
Does it lead to problem there?
So there are some problems. Initially, there was there was lack of regulatory clarity with respect to transshipment. But now, sir, the e-waybill mechanism has also maintained that if a good is being transported from one place to the another, and simply for being transported to a third place, that specific mechanism has also been integrated now. But there are problems with respect to transshipment with regards to exports and imports.
Okay.
So, thank you, Chairman. Morning, Shaswath. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, sir.
So, when did you arrive Delhi?
Sir, I live in Delhi only, sir.
Okay.
And I'm living in Delhi for past 7 years now.
So, how's the weather?
The weather is very chilly.
Very chilly.
Yes, sir.
And about the pollution?
So the pollution has been a problem in the last 2 months.
What did you note? What is the AQI today?
Sir, I have not checked the AQI for today.
Anyway, I'm sure you would have read newspaper of today.
Sir, I have not been able to follow up on today.
Did you read yesterday's newspaper? Okay. Which paper?
So the Indian Express.
Indian Express. Can you tell me the headlines of yesterday's paper?
So one of the headlines was with respect to Russia bombing Kiev again after a few years. So the second headline was one of the news by Benjamin Netanyahu with respect to the protection of the Philadelphia buffer corridor between Israel and Palestine. So the third was with respect to, so these are the two news I can recall.
Well, on the domestic front, there was a big news on the Supreme Court judgment on Adani's.
Yes, sir.
Well, let's throw some light on what is the actual issue that's really pinching in there in the case of Adani's.
So there are two issues mainly. So the first issue is that a group known as Hindenburg conducted a short selling operation with the Adani group, as a result of which there was a decline in the share price of the group. Secondly, sir, as a result of which the Supreme Court requested SEBI to undertake an investigation, a comprehensive investigation with respect to the same. And it also included holding an investigation with respect to the foreign portfolio investments of the related party transactions that come in the Adani group. So the SEBI has submitted a report to the Supreme Court in this regard. Yesterday, the Supreme Court came out with a
Alright.
that an SIT would not be constituted with respect to Adani investigation, and the investigation of SEBI is considered to be sufficient and sizable.
Good, Shashwat. Recently, there was an earthquake in Japan.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me what is the difference between magnitude and intensity of an earthquake?
Sir, if I can recall correctly, sir, the magnitude of the earthquake, which is measured in the Richter scale, talks about the overall the impact of the earthquake from the very focal point. Whereas, sir, the intensity of earthquake, sir, I don't recall right now the exact meaning.
Then how is it measured, the intensity? On what scale do you measure it?
So
You
there's
don't know.
another scale, I think, sir, I don't recall the exact scale as well.
Okay. Now, tell me what are the causal factors which leads to these kind of earthquakes?
So the first are the geographical factors. For instance, Japan.
That's very generic. Be specific.
Okay. So one is with respect to the crustal breaks in the Earth's crust. For instance, when any specific geography is located at the boundaries of the tectonic plates, then they are more prone to earthquakes because there is continuous tectonic movements. The second is, sir, with respect to what can be called as the resurgence of the old platonic crusts, as we see in the case of the Gujarat's Kutch region, where the old crustal rocks re-emerge, causing earthquake again. A third is, sir, that in the midst of the oceans also we notice earthquakes in the form of the opening up of the mid-oceanic rocks, called as the mid-oceanic ridges. So these are the three.
Shashwat, we have been having such a large technological advancement in all fields. How is that in this particular area, the earthquake, the forecasting is really bad in the sense that we are not really able to make out as to when the earthquake. Why is this?
Sir,
What does your logical mind say, or a rational mind say, or a scientific mind say?
Sir, it is difficult to undertake early surveillance of earthquakes, unlike other like tropical cyclones. We can undertake forecasting and surveillance, but with earthquakes it is more difficult. So, firstly, because it is very difficult scientifically to find out when a tectonic break might take place, causing an earthquake. Secondly, sir, in the Indian context itself, the Himalayan region is very prone to earthquake, and the region being very young and facing a lot of custom breaks, it is very difficult to determine the time, the location, as well as the intensity of the earthquake.
Two more questions quickly coming in. Greens is the word of today, whether it's in business or in technology. Three greens I'm going to come with. Green mining. What is green mining? The green product. Green building.
So green mining could be one of the more sustainable ways of mining, moving ahead of what is called as rat hole mining, where manual mining takes place, which is highly polluting, to more sustainable ways of mining, wherein probably a simple pipe can be used to extract products from the
Is that what green mining is all about? Right mining is green mining?
No, sir. I'm saying that
Example you give. Anyway, elaborate, please. Please elaborate.
Sir, for instance, US has invented certain technologies with respect to fracking
Yes.
that is considered to be more friendly with respect to the technologies of green mining, wherein specific liquids and chemicals are sent down the ground through a specific pipe, and they convert let's say the underground coal into gaseous format, and that can be taken out. This prevents the erstwhile highly polluted.
Right. Green building.
So, green buildings, in my understanding, are buildings which are using products that are less polluting in terms of environment. They are
For example.
high cooling.
For example.
Sir, I don't recall a specific material per se, but moving beyond the cement and some of these limestone materials to
And green product.
So green products are those products which can be which have less carbon footprint per se. For instance, moving beyond plastic products to using paper bags, they can be considered as green products.
Have you heard of a term called greenwashing?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
So greenwashing is the technique that is being used by some of these firms in order to showcase some of these products, some of their products as green friendly. However, proving to be a false notion, which means using wrong green branding in order to promote their products.
Final question. You're given your extracurricular activities as undertaking heritage walk.
Yes, sir.
Quite interesting extracurricular activity, I must say. Just tell me how these heritage tags are allotted by the UNESCO.
So the UNESCO allots heritage tags in multiple settings. For instance, firstly, they allot what is called as the intangible cultural heritage sites, and they produce a list for the same. Secondly, so there are also World Heritage Sites, which come in the UNESCO World Heritage Sites list. For this, they have various criteria. Some of them have due cultural and ecological importance. Some of them hold species that are endangered and have been prevalent since time immemorial. So there are some specific objective criteria which UNESCO maintains to give these tags.
Thank you, Shaswath. Over to Mr. Verma.
Shaswath, feeling well?
Yes.
Political science and international relations.
Yes.
Good. Please tell that. I missed it. My optional was psychology. Anyway, so international relations, you will be taking some interest in our neighborhood.
Yes.
So what comes to my mind? I don't have a very clear answer. How it is that a Bangladesh, a small country like Bangladesh, a poor country like Bangladesh, is ahead of us on social independence. And even the per capita income is, better place.
Sir, I can think of two reasons, sir. Firstly, sir, the textile industry in Bangladesh has done very well in last 30 to 40 years.
Fine, next.
Secondly, sir, the women's labor force participation rate in Bangladesh as well as women's participation in leadership roles is much higher in Bangladesh, as we see also in case of politics.
Okay, fine.
So these are the two things I can.
Per capita.
Sir.
Social indicators?
Sir, in the social indicators, Bangladesh has been doing well in terms of some of the social indicators like infant mortality rate and maternal mortality rate.
Okay.
However, India's literacy rate is higher than Bangladesh. Also, sir, the per capita income recently of Bangladesh crossed that of India. Sir, I can think of two reasons, sir. So the first is that India still has a large population, especially in its outskirts, that have not been able to join the mainstream economic, the economic forces. That has not been the case in Bangladesh.
So now, Bangladesh to our own country.
Pardon, sir.
Bangladesh to back to our own country. Our country, India, Bharat.
Yes, sir.
So, our economy is growing. The size of economy has crossed 4 trillion.
Yes, sir.
Per capita income is also growing. But disparity is not, the gap is also increasing.
Yes, sir.
So there has become the question of equity. So what to do to bridge this gap? Rich is super rich,
Yes, sir.
poor, better off, but still gap is too huge. So how to bridge this gap?
Sir, my understanding is that we have to produce high-level jobs in the lowest rungs of our demography.
High level jobs,
High quality jobs.
high quality jobs,
So, for instance, sir.
better paying jobs.
Yes, sir. For instance, sir, we have to promote self-employment for those who come from rural areas. For this, we can promote institutional credit to the self-help group.
I put a closer to you.
Yes, sir.
The wages which we pay to the entry level workers, like maid in the home, watchmen, are too low by international standards. Why not there be a legislative act to jack up these minimum wages? So some money will move from rich to poor. So rich will not that much look for the costly cars, and poor will look for the fan and things like that in their household.
Sir, I agree from your standpoint. However, sir, on a practical point, most of those who work in our homes, for instance, the drivers and the maids, they function in what is called as the informal and the unorganized force. As a result, sir, any legislation that may direct a formal sector would be a plausibility. But in the informal space, it is very difficult to implement as there is no legislation.
That we don't have good enough ethical standards to follow those standards in informal sector.
So my understanding is that our policy parameters should shift from understanding of mere wages to forming a holistic social security of the informal workers. For instance, we have the Unorganized Social Security Act 2008.
Okay.
Under this, we have to provide them with necessary insurances, healthcare support, education, at least at the minimum level. So that they
Okay,
can,
Shaswath, okay. Interview में जैसे board member है, okay. So now I move to freelance. Something which is being done by the economic country. Some are blaming China, the debt trap and all that. Some are blaming Rashtrakuta for their wrong policy, their bad policy. So now that you are a student of international relations and you watch what is happening in the world, what is coming to your mind as a good, plausible answer to what has happened to the economy of India?
So my understanding is that there were poor decisions with respect to economic governance that were taken by the political leadership that led to this.
Sorry.
The country should make sure that they should not become economically dependent on any other country. They should not lose their economic sovereignty in the first place.
My last question. How does this debt trap operates? In this case, China, that we are right.
Yes, sir. So the debt trap diplomacy of China operates under what is called as you mentioned, the Belt and Road Initiative, wherein they give loans at a very lopsided conditions, at very high interest rates, forcing the countries to take the loans because of their own developmental and political interests. These debt trap operates in a way wherein the country, for instance, in this case China, gives these loans for infrastructure projects at very high interest rates for cheap conditions.
Infrastructure product at a very high interest rate.
Yes, sir.
Give one example of infrastructure project from Sri Lanka.
So one is the Hampantota port.
What happened there?
So initially the port which came in the constituency of the erstwhile president Sri Rajapaksa was being built by China, for which China gave the loan. However, as Sri Lanka was unable to pay back the loan, the China took the specific port as a lease for 99 years, wherein now China owns the port for the specific time.
Ma'am, up?
Sure. So how are you feeling, Shaswath?
I'm feeling good, ma'am.
Great. So Shaswath, see that you were the team leader of some star innovation project at the Cluster Innovation Center. Recently, we got a news that India climbed the rank to 40th in the Global Innovation Ranking. What do you think are the factors which contribute to rising up in the rank of India in this particular ranking?
Ma'am, the first is the improvement in the climate of innovation from the school level itself. For instance, NITI Aayog has launched the Atal Tinkering Lab to promote the spirit of innovation among children. Second is, ma'am, that at the level of the startups, we are having various more incubators and accelerators that are promoting innovation. As a result, the startups and the number of unicorns also expanded.
Can you interrupt you here, can you give me one example of such incubation center of any institution which has produced good number of startups, since you mentioned unicorns?
Ma'am, I don't recall any specific name of an incubation center, but there is an incubator that is built in Hyderabad, which is the world's largest incubation center and has produced a range of startups.
Okay, great. You have been part of an MUN as well?
Yes.
Do you think these MUNs, which are now being organized at every level, from communities to schools to institutions, universities, do they really have any significance in enhancing any skills of the students, the candidates, anyone around who's participating in them?
Ma'am, I personally think that MUN played a great role in my own personal life. Firstly, my interest towards diplomacy and international relations emanated from my participation in MUNs itself. Secondly, ma'am, MUNs have a significant impact in improving one's debating skills, one's negotiating skills, the skills of drafting and researching over specific topics. So in that perspective, I think MUNs are very vital in the student life.
Okay. So there was a woman who won the Nobel laureate in economics. Do you know who was that? And for what purpose?
Ma'am, if I'm able to recall correctly, she was the wife of Abhijit Banerjee, who won the Nobel laureate in economics. Her name was Esther Duflo.
Okay. She did one, but who was the most recent one?
Ma'am, I don't recall the most recent.
Okay, no worries. Again, you were part of NSS as well, the National Service Scheme, which is at the JNU level. Social empowerment is something that we try to promote at every level, and there are so many organizations, governmental, non-governmental, which have cropped up for the same. Can you give an example of any one social organization, apart from NSS, which is working in empowering?
Ma'am, the first I can recall is the Nehru Yuva Kendra Sangathan, that also works towards promoting women's participation in these voluntary activities. But this is the one.
The one that you recall? Okay. Last two questions. So you were part of the legislative research team at PRT, I believe. Any two techniques that you can use for the purpose of research in civil services?
Ma'am, the first is very necessarily what I call as the direct secondary research, wherein we can accumulate the best practices from across the country of administrative successes, of successes in terms of policing, in education and agriculture, that can be brought at the district level. Secondly, ma'am, at the grassroots level, we can directly promote primary research with the beneficiaries, with the specific people who are getting the benefits of the schemes, as to what is the impact, what is their feedback, and incorporate them back in our policies.
So since you mentioned about this primary research, reaching out directly to the beneficiaries to collect data in order to understand the impact, any governmental projects that are going on in this regard? Anything that you can recall?
My understanding is that the collection of the data with respect to government reports, like that of census, PLFS and NFHS, they can be considered as an example, a similar example in this regard.
Okay, and last question from my end, since you are from Varanasi. Any specific cuisine that is famous in Varanasi, and how is it placed at the global level?
Ma'am, in Varanasi, there is a specific cuisine called as. I also request all panel members to try it. It's a very good cuisine. It's a sweet dish which is made out of the malai of milk, and it is now receiving global recognition. For instance, the G20 delegates were given the flavor of the Varanasi Malayu.
Malayu.
That's great to remember. Over to you, Mr. Pal.
Right.
Okay, so hello Shaswath.
Hello, sir.
So since you are already working in the legislative assistant, right? And we know that Council of Ministers are definitely responsible to the Parliament. But in last few years, we have seen the Parliament is failing in this significant action. So can you suggest some amendment that you can do in the Constitution or anywhere so that Parliament can do this work, especially to make executive responsibility?
Sir, I can think of 2 to 3 areas where the parliamentary reforms can be brought in. The first is that the standing committee of the various ministries can be empowered because they play a very significant role in keeping oversight over the activities of the executive. For instance, as per the Dinesh Sharma committee, there should be some bills and legislations that should be mandated to pass through the standing committee. Secondly, sir, my understanding, parliamentary oversight over the executive can improve if there can be greater space for the opposition to raise their voices. For instance, sir, in UK, there is one day specifically allotted in a week where the agenda of the parliament is set by the opposition. Some similar best practices can be incorporated in our parliamentary system as well, sir.
Oh, great. Can you give any examples that in our parliament the private members will have been passed successfully? Any example of private members?
Sir, it has been an unfortunate history that after 1960, no private member bill has been passed. The last bill was also with respect to a judiciary-related bill. It was the Supreme Court's Enhancement of Power Bill in 1960. However, sir, recently in 2017, the Transgenders Bill, which was a private member bill, was passed in Rajya Sabha by Tiruchi Shiva, who is a member of Parliament. However, unfortunately, sir, that specific bill could not be passed through the Lok Sabha, and the government promised that a similar bill would be brought, and a transgender protection bill was brought in by the government after that.
Okay, one more question regarding this anti-defection law that has been brought by the government just to make them responsible. But there is some drawback about the anti-defection law. So what is the drawback? Basically, especially the freedom of speech and expressions for the member of parliament or legislative assemblies. So can you give me some drawbacks?
So firstly, anti-defection law significantly curtails the powers of the member of parliament to freely speak out their minds and the interest of their constituencies in the parliament. Secondly, sir, it increases the role of political parties per se in the parliament, where the whips play more important role than the individual conscience of the MPs.
Great. Last question actually. How Varanasi actually changed the last 5 years, basically in terms of tourism? So how many tourists that Varanasi is getting right now in last 1 year?
Sir, I don't have the exact figure per se, but there has been significant increase in Varanasi. Firstly, sir, the building of the Kashi Vishwanath corridor and its inclusion in the heritage circuit of Uttar Pradesh has made Varanasi as a central focal point for all the tourists to visit Uttar Pradesh. Secondly, sir, the improvement and the beautification of Sarnath, the Banaras Hindu University, the building of the Varanasi Convention Center. These activities have also promoted Varanasi's cultural ethos and have resulted in an increment in the tourists coming to Varanasi, sir. Thank you, sir.
Shaswath, what is the meaning of Karnataka?
Sorry, sir, I don't know the specific meaning of the term.
Bichi Bagh कहाँ पे आया?
Yes, sir. So this is my specific home address. Karnataka is a specific place in Varanasi.
अच्छा सॉरी हाँ करण घंटा.
Yes, sir.
हाँ करण घंटा मतलब क्या हुआ?
Sir, I don't know the specific meaning, honestly.
नीची बाग को नीची क्यों कहते हैं?
Sir, I know more about it. Sir.
एक आपने इसमें लैंप लिखा, लैंप का फुल फॉर्म क्या है?
Sir, LAMP is the legislative assistant to a member of parliament. This is a fellowship that is conducted by PRS Legislative Research.
Right?
PRS Legislative Research.
PRS.
Yes, sir.
Some group.
Yes, sir. So PRS is a private organization that specifically provides legislative drafts and research over bills and policies to the member of parliament.
That means it's like a think tank,
Yes, sir.
and they are trying to influence the government policy making.
So they do influence the government policy making. However, my own experience of working in TRS was that it is highly neutral and impartial in its functioning and highly professional.
So you'll wait outside. We'll call you back. Your interview is over. How do you feel your interview went?
So it was good. There were some areas of improvement I had.
Kindly.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.